All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. Today is November 7th, 2023. We do have all of our board members present in person, except for Board Member Sweat, who's joining us from Boston, I believe. Is that correct, Christy?
She might not be able to.
She is Boston.
She's driving, I think.
Okay. Well, nonetheless, welcome, Christy, who's joining us remotely. We do have a need for a closed session.
Her hand, I
Oh.
think.
Or she's
Great.
saying yes.
Oh, yes.
Thanks, Christy. But nonetheless, we do have a need for a closed session this evening. I'm willing to accept a motion from the board. Board Member Jensen.
I move that the board on November 7th, 2023 go into closed executive session to discuss the character, professional competence, or physical or mental health of an individual.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Is there any discussion to the motion? Seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote with Board Member Sika.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
Christy has a thumbs up.
She's a thumbs up, yes.
Okay.
Bryce Williams, yes.
All right, that motion carries. That motion carries. We will go ahead and prepare the room for our closed executive session. Thank you.
Love that. The desk. That's perfect.
Thanks for getting so many seats out.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to call this meeting to order. Thank you for joining us and accommodating the board's need to have a closed executive session on character and competence of an individual. Today is November 7th, 2023. We are convening the meeting at 5:38 p.m. I would like to recognize and acknowledge our association presidents who are with us this evening in person or online. For Buildings and Grounds, we have President Elia Ocampo. I don't see her here. Child Nutrition, President Tanya Slaughter. Might be hiding. Oh. Salt Lake Education Office Personnel Association, President Whitney Favre. Transportation, President Chris Krogh. The Salt Lake Education Association, President James Tobler and Vice President Mike Harmon. There they are. Hey, guys. And then the Salt Lake Association of School Administrators, SLASA, is President Bree De Leon, and we have Principal Kesley Green, who should be joining us here in person. I don't know if I see her yet either, but she will be here. So thank you for doing that. Up next is our Pledge of Allegiance, and we have Rachel Medina, who's going to lead us in that pledge. Rachel?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Rachel. It's good to see you again as well. All right. Moving on to the next item of our agenda is our consent agenda, and I'm open to hearing a motion from the board.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as written, with the exception of item 6, safe school case number 24-023, which I would recommend we move to the action agenda.
Have a motion
Second.
and a second on the table. Any further discussion to the motion? Seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote with Board Member Anderson.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
We got a thumbs up from Christy, who's joining us remotely. Thank you, Christy.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
All right, that motion carries, and we will revisit item number 6 and our action agenda at the end of the meeting. Okay, up next, we have the reports agenda. Possible fourth comprehensive high school next steps. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Request to speak. How could I forget that? That's why everybody is here. Hello. My bad. We really do want to hear from everybody. I'm super sorry. That was totally a mental slip there. I do have some guidelines for public comment that I would like to read, or that the board has asked me to read, and I'm happy to do so. The board enjoys the opportunity to hear from the public during the comment portion of its meetings. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to remind you of our board rules governing your comments. 1. The total time reserved for public comment is not to exceed 15 minutes, with all speakers or groups limited to 3. The board will not allow public comments during board meetings that are slanderous, obscene, or otherwise violate state or federal law. Employees and/or their representatives may not use the public comment period to address issues that should be raised through existing formal communication channels or established grievance or negotiations procedures. I'd also like to explain that unless the speaker's topic is already on the agenda, state law prohibits the board from taking action on items raised during the public comment period. However, if it seems appropriate to the circumstances, I may direct district staff to follow up with the speaker on the topic discussed. All right, and I would also like to remind the board and the community that we have a extended public comment period time this evening. So we will have 4 speakers that will participate in what I'm going to call our normal or our regularly planned and scheduled request to speak. Those comments will still be at 3 minutes, and then we have a number of folks that have signed up to speak for 2 minutes that are specific to school boundary enclosure. So we'll go ahead and start with our 3-minute ones first. Okay. Excellent. Thank you for that. And Superintendent Grant just pointed out that one of the spots we have is for an interpreter, so we have 3 folks that are signed up on our regularly scheduled request to speak. Thank you, Dr. Grant. All right, first up we have Catherine Harmston. Is Catherine with us? Hi, Catherine. Thank you for joining us this evening, and the clock will start when you start.
Thank you. All right, first of all, I just want to say thank you to each of you. I appreciate the opportunity to lend my voice here. My name is Catherine Harmston, and I'm here because of my beautiful 5-year-old boy who started kindergarten at Wasatch this fall. I hope to convey a message of light and ask that you keep Wasatch open. Think for a moment, what shines brighter than a star? Nothing. Wasatch Elementary is a star, with little kiddo stars inside listening intently to their teachers, singing songs in music class, creating art cards, exploring the life of bats, typing into the computer lab, and then connecting emotionally in drama class. If you've never been inside, please go. The building radiates warmth, security, inclusion, and light. I do appreciate the district's intent to improve things. The website says that a holistic approach is being used in these closure discussions. And the definition of holistic, according to Merriam-Webster, is relating to or concerned with wholes or with complete systems rather than with the analysis of, treatment of, or dissection into parts. But what I can't figure out is why the same site also says that student performance, as measured by proficiency and growth, would not be a primary consideration. My perspective is leaving the overall performance of the school does not equal a holistic approach. and instead this is being led by a focus on the bothersome parts, namely old buildings. Some quick highlights about Utah. The Senate website states Utah is ranked as the best state in the nation and has the best economic outlook for the 16th year in a row. The state is growing, and with that growth will come babies. The Utes rank 18th in football. The UU Health ranks top 10 in quality. And Wasatch Elementary is something that the state should brag about as well. It was just named a Blue Ribbon School, according to the Department of Education, which I'm sure you're all aware, a symbol of exemplary teaching and learning. The renowned arts program reinforces academic learning, aiding in the development of critical right brain pathways of creativity, leading to unparalleled teamwork, problem solving, and discovery. These are skills that we cannot easily measure, but are ultimately priceless. The value of maintaining this school is astronomical. Just for fun, let's estimate the value of the land. If Google Maps is correct, Wasatch takes up roughly 120,000 square feet, or 2.75 acres. Where there's a land listed for sale nearby, MLS number 1877871, at 0.16 acres for $500,000. Using that price point, Wasatch occupies something worth roughly $8.6 million in land alone. That amount of money now, while enticing, will not last very long. What will have been lost cannot be undone. The value of Wasatch is worth more than the weight of gold, which is about $123 trillion. You all have the power now to support and strengthen the light that is Wasatch. They're the stars. Let us continue to be a beacon of light and excellence for all to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. All right. Up next, we have Elsa Gonzalez.
Buenas tardes, mi nombre es Elsa González. Doy gracias.
Good evening, my name is Elsa Gonzalez.
Doy gracias por el privilegio de estar aquí.
I'm very thankful for this privilege to be here.
Estoy aquí representando
I am
varios
representing
programas y varias
different
escuelas
programs and
cerca
different
de
schools
Glendale.
close to Glendale,
Y estoy aquí para
and I am here
sí, por favor,
to ask
escucha nuestra voz
if you can hear our voices
para ver si pueden abrir la escuela de high school en Glendale. Ahí
to open a high school in Glendale.
quisiera saber
I would like
si
to know
nos comunican cuáles son los pasos y cuándo son
if you
las
can inform
respuestas.
us the steps and what is the answer.
Necesitamos urgentemente
We need this urgently.
porque hay mucha necesidad
There is a
cerca de
big
tener
need
una escuela en nuestra área.
to have a school like this in our area.
Hay muchas razones por la cual nos queremos mover. En vez de venir hasta la East High, queremos una cerca ahí.
Because instead of sending our kids all the way to the East High, we would like to have a school close to there.
Y por eso estamos aquí, para que nos escuchen.
That's why we are here, so we can be here.
Les agradezco mucho por su atención
I appreciate a lot your attention,
y esperemos y escuchar respuestas.
and we are hoping to hear from you.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias, Elsa, por tus comentarios. All right, our third speaker in this portion of the public comment period is Nick Scow. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name, Nick.
President Salazar, you pronounced it right, and you're the only person that ever did it.
Thank you. A win for today.
Thank you to the board and the opportunity to comment here. My name is Nick Scow. I'm a parent of 2 Hawthorne Elementary students. I greatly value the contributions of the teachers, district staff, parents, board members, and others in building a strong community around our school. Closing this blue ribbon school would have significant detrimental impacts on my children, their peers, and the neighborhood that we call home. That said, I've tried to approach this process objectively, attending school meetings, reviewing available materials provided by the district. As difficult as it would be, I'm willing to accept school closures if the decision-making process is fair, the need for closure is clear, and is transparent. Unfortunately, the process has been marked by a lack of transparency, haste, disorganization, and the absence of publicly available data to support key assumptions made by the district. For example, the district's stated need for school closures focuses on the need to right-size schools at between 400 to 550 students per school without any data provided to parents. The Salt Lake Tribune found most studies suggest a right size of 300 to 350 students, enrollment numbers which several of the schools being studied for closure meet or exceed. Rather than total school enrollment, the district has strangely placed an emphasis on neighborhood enrollment in the school closure process, yet Hawthorne offers special hub programs that attract diverse students from outside neighborhood and even district boundaries. Long-term demographic trends are not being adequately considered, as the Hawthorne neighborhood is projected to experience less decline in school-aged children than, for example, the Ensign and Indian Hills neighborhoods, which are not under evaluation for closure. School age also appears to be a primary factor of the closure for study, presumably because older schools cost more to operate than others. However, when questioned about building O&M costs at a recent meeting at Hawthorne, the district had no data to share. Proximity to busy streets is also being considered, but the district has no data showing how this impacts safety or even how many students walk to their neighborhood schools. While Hawthorne has proximity to busier streets, it also has a large student population that bikes or walks to school daily. Do you see the trend? Sadly, this flawed process has eroded many parents' trust in the district and has created divisions among our school communities and between neighborhoods. To bring our community together and focus on what is best for our students, the district and the board should refrain from making a decision anytime soon and proceed only when a truly deliberate, a data-supported, and a transparent process is in place. Thank you for the opportunity to make comments this evening.
Thank you, Nick. All right, so now we've moved into our school boundary and closure public comment period. Please keep in mind that in order to have as many speakers as we could have tonight, we're keeping these comments to 2 minutes each. Our first speaker is Sarah Wickstrom. Sarah, are you with us? Thank you for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Sarah Wickstrom. I'm the mother of a 4th grader at Hawthorne and a 2nd grader at Wasatch. Throughout this process, the district has touted the benefits of right-sizing our schools. I believe that this emphasis on right-sizing our schools has only looked at the supposed benefits of this consolidation plan and does not paint an accurate picture of the central role these amazing schools play in our community and the negative effects of closure. These are excellent schools. Wasatch, Hawthorne, and Emerson have all received national recognition as Blue Ribbon schools. This fall, Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona said that schools like Wasatch have set a national example for what it means to raise the bar in education. In this moment where we're fighting to make up for educational losses suffered by our children during the pandemic, we should be celebrating these excellent schools, not closing them. These are neighborhood schools. Many of the schools slated for closure are schools where kids and families bike and walk to and from school all year long. Not only are these kids and their parents benefiting from physical exercise, they're having meaningful interactions with their neighbors and classmates. They're not adding to bus and automobile traffic on our roads or the pollution in our air. In this moment where childhood obesity rates are increasing, traffic along many of our main thoroughfares is becoming untenable, our air quality is sometimes amongst the worst in our nation, and our city and nation need community more than ever, we should be strengthening these neighborhood schools, not closing them. In closing these beloved neighborhood schools, the district is assuming that families will choose to stay in the Salt Lake City School District. This is not a given. This study process has been mired by a lack of transparency and mistakes in data collection and analysis. Many families may not choose or may choose to opt out of the Salt Lake City School District when their new school involves a lengthy bus ride, a frustrating car commute, and an overcrowded classroom. Right-sizing may paradoxically further the declining enrollment in our schools. Salt Lake City is booming. This misguided focus on right-sizing is myopic and wrong. Let's work together to celebrate and strengthen what is already great in our schools and ensure a thriving public education system in our capital city. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Next to speak is Jenny McCoskey.
Hi. I know you've gotten lots of emails from me. So, in this process, the district has failed to adequately communicate its decision-making to the public. It has said that this is a data-driven process, but the data doesn't drive decisions. The interpretation of data does. And the district has done a poor job in explaining its data and its interpretations. It has also failed to acknowledge the strengths and pitfalls of its own data. Some metrics used to select schools are biased. One metric is the neighborhood enrollment, which fundamentally targets schools which have large, non-neighborhood-based programs, including our gifted and talented programs. Large magnet programs need to be in schools with lower neighborhood enrollment. They take up space. If you continue to use this metric, schools with these magnet programs will always be more likely targets for closure. They'll become marks, and people won't want us. Remember, it was Lowell, which had the gifted and talented program that is now at Hawthorne, that closed in the 2000s, and we are now facing closure again today. Magnet programs also, to be successful, need to be integrated into the schools, and this is not an easy process. We still have teachers and staff who can tell you how disastrous the program movement from Lowell to Hawthorne was for all parties involved. It has taken years to reestablish meaningful inter-program collaboration at Hawthorne, and we are worried that once again program movement will destroy what we have built. The district also ignored evidence that the performance and growth metrics of schools matters in the closure process. It ignored its promise to replicate high-performing schools, not to close them. Evidence shows that when students are moved because of closure, they often do worse academically. However, recent studies have shown that this loss can be mitigated by placing schools in higher-performing schools. Thus, if the district values what is best for students, it should not shutter its blue-ribbon schools. Hawthorne, Emerson, and Wasatch are the only schools in this district that have received this designation since 2018.
Thank you, Jenny. Next to speak is Nick Meacham. Thank you, Nick.
Good evening, Nick Meacham. I'm a father of a elementary school student at Newman Elementary. Newman parents have a number of issues with what's happening right now and the possible closure of Newman Elementary. First off, I'd like to address the traffic on 10th North. 10th North has been designated as a non-thoroughfare due to the fact that it only has 2 lanes going either east or west. The problem with that is that the 10th North serves as a main vein to I-15 northbound and southbound, and also serves as a main vein to a main thoroughfare, Redwood Road. During rush hour traffic at 8 a.m. when parents are dropping off their children at Rose Park Elementary and children are walking to school at Rose Park Elementary, this creates a lot of havoc in the traffic on 10th North. Moving more kids to Rose Park Elementary from Newman Elementary, which is the only logical conclusion, would create more traffic, thus making it more unsafe for those who are walking to school and even more unsafe for those who are receiving rides from their parents. Newman Elementary currently hosts a community food pantry that serves the entire community, not just those who have students at the elementary school. It serves currently between 800 and 1,000 people per month on a 3-day-a-week basis. If you close Newman, this food pantry will be closed, furthering the distraught circumstances of some of these families in the community. Third, hub programs. We've been told that hub programs can be moved to any school, but the only logical conclusion is that it's easier to keep a hub program where it currently is, giving an advantage to any school that may have a hub program and is currently in the study, rather than moving it to another school. Finally, the West Side has a number of issues. First, the West Side in its entirety was not heard about the prison relocation. We now have a prison on the West Side. The West Side is not being heard about the freeway expansion. Now our property is going to be taken by the freeway expansion. Finally, we're not being heard about school closures. Dr. Graham has said that these schools need to be built up as a gem. That's not happening. Schools would be further served if they were to entice families with programs like music, special education, drama, and other programs. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next to speak is Carrie Gonzalez. Thank you for joining us, Carrie.
Thank you. So I am Kerry Gonzalez, a Mexican-born, American naturalized educator here in Utah, whose child is in kindergarten, is a kindergarten student at Wasatch Elementary. And I stand before you today to emphasize the critical importance of saving Wasatch. This beloved institution, deeply woven into the fabric of our community, is not just a school building for us. It is a pillar of opportunity for many children, a hub of hope and community, and a symbol of academic excellence. Wasatch Elementary has been providing generations of students with a solid foundation for learning. It is in this school that young minds are molded, dreams are nurtured, and the future of our community is shaped. The teachers at Wasatch are dedicated to providing quality education, fostering creativity, and instilling essential values in our children. Saving Wasatch Elementary means preserving these educational opportunities for our kids, ensuring that they have access to the best resources and educators to thrive and achieve their full potential. However, this is not just about academics. Wasatch Elementary is the heart of our diverse community. It's where friendships are forged, where kids and parents from different backgrounds come together to support one another, and where a sense of belonging is instilled. This school is more than just a place of learning. It is a center of social and cultural exchange. The bonds created within its walls extend far beyond the classroom, knitting our community together and strengthening the very essence of what it means to live in our neighborhood. Moreover, the performance of Wasatch Elementary speaks for itself. For years, this school has consistently delivered outstanding results, demonstrating its commitment to academic excellence, reflected in its National Blue Ribbon Award of this year. The dedication of this unique staff and its unique staff and the engagement of the parents have nurtured a strong sense of community and fostered a culture of achievement that we are immensely proud of. By preserving our school, we preserve its legacy of excellence and continue to provide children with the highest standards of education available. So Wasatch Elementary is not just bricks and mortar for us. Saving it is ensuring that our children will have the best possible education and start in life. So we propose you to invest in its future for the benefit of our children and our community, and not to close it.
Thank you, Carrie. That's
Thank you.
Next to speak, we have Alex Yiannopoulos. Either one, yeah.
I want to thank the board and Dr. Grant for giving me the time to speak again today. My name is Alex Yiannopoulos, and my daughter attended all 7 years of elementary at Wasatch, and my son is currently a third grader at Emerson. Coincidentally, these two elementary schools are also the two most recent schools to be recognized as National Blue Ribbon Schools in Salt Lake City. Wasatch this year and Emerson in 2021. Wasatch and Emerson have been recognized for their high academic achievements and excellence in education, and this recognition is a testament to the hard work of our students, educators, families, and communities. In the 40-year history of Blue Ribbon Schools, the Department of Education has recognized only 6 elementary schools in the Salt Lake City School District, with Wasatch the only school to be recognized twice, and 2 of the other schools up for closure, Emerson and Hawthorne, being 2 others. A decision by the board to close Wasatch and Emerson would contradict the fulfillment of the district's own mission statement of a commitment to educational excellence and integrity, and completely disregard our blue ribbon recognition. Are the district and the board committed to educational excellence and integrity and keeping our 2 best elementary schools open? Or are they committed to the abstract and flawed data of this population and boundary study, a study giving the facade of legitimacy, going on about right sizing and student enrollment in their holistic approach, yet conversely awarding the highest scores to new buildings with the lowest enrollment who are not right-sized at all? This screams sunk cost fallacy. Wasatch and Emerson should not close because of some phantom boundary options committee's bogus ranking system. motivated by the state's audit of the district's wasteful spending and rebuilding of new schools that sit half empty.
Thank you. Next to speak is Chris Porter. Chris, are you with us this evening? All right. We will move on to Gabrielle Lepresto.
Hey there.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
I'm here with David Jones, and we both have the same thing to say, so David's going to read it to save time.
Thank you. My name is David Jones. I'm a board member of the East Liberty Park Community Organization. As a recognized community organization authorized by Salt Lake City, we offer the following comments. Don't close all 4 schools in the heart of Salt Lake City. Wasatch, Binion, Emerson, and Hawthorne serve an area of the community that is about a mile wide or so and 4 miles long, extending from the lower avenues to Sugar House. So the closure of those 4 schools would, A, be unprecedented. Even the district's own history of school closures never covered such a large area of the city. B, would close 3 National Blue Ribbon schools, Wasatch, Emerson, and Hawthorne. Not a good look. And hard to justify, as these schools are recognized as exemplary, high-performing schools. These schools should be emulated, not closed. C, would fail to meet one of the aims of the school district, which acknowledges, quote, a high-quality school district impacts all residents as strong schools attract families, inclusive schools build neighborhood trust, and strong school districts attract business and industry support. Eliminating these 4 schools from the heart of Salt Lake City does none of that, but would only create more of an east-west divide. You need to innovate, market, and plan. Make an effort, make a priority, make it a board mandate to increase enrollment. Find ways to attract students who live in neighboring school districts to come here. Figure out how to give the thousands of students that live in the district but who have opted to attend elsewhere a reason to remain here. We have been told by the district that approximately 30% of the 20,000 or so school-age students who reside in Salt Lake City opt out of public district schools. If the school district was attractive enough to keep its current resident students enrolled in public district schools, you wouldn't have this problem. If the district spent as much time figuring out how to attract students as it has on how to close schools, you wouldn't have this problem. Finally, you need to question the data that's used to support any recommendations you receive. Question why a right-sized school is 400 to 550 students. It's not. There's experts that will tell you otherwise, and there no peer-reviewed study that would identify that. Question if the district has complied with all board resolutions, including the exclusive school resolution concerning schools such as Emerson that have special hub classes. The community wants the school district to be a beacon of excellence in the city and to be the school district in Utah.
David, that's
we support everything that Superintendent said with her vision last week at the Central City School District, and we need to strengthen our schools, not close them. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. Next to speak is Carlos Martins. It's a public meeting. You're more than welcome to have it.
So, and I have some visual aids, so I hope that's allowed.
Not sure what that says to me.
Hello, my name is Carlos, and I came to Salt Lake from Portugal in the 90s. I was 7 years old, and I couldn't speak a lick of English when I was enrolled in first grade at Emerson Elementary. That's me there. That's right, I'm an eagle. I had no problem making friends, even though I couldn't communicate, mainly due to my soccer skills at recess. However, there was one kid that spoke Spanish by the name of Javier. Javier was tremendously important because back then, the East Side was less diverse than it is now, if you can imagine that. Javier was the only resource that I had to communicate with people. I also had an amazing friend by the name of Joey Osmond. Both Joey and Javier were my best friends, but mainly the difference was that Javier switched schools in second grade. Fortunately, my English was a lot better by then. Joey was able to stay at Emerson with me all throughout my school, and because of that, we grew as not friends, but family, truly a brother. To this day, I have no idea where Javier is, but Joey is right here holding the visual aids. I couldn't imagine my life without Joey, and our relationship is priceless. I hear Mr. Conley talking a lot about a fiduciary responsibility, but what about a human and communal responsibility? By potentially closing these schools in such a rapid and violent manner, you are robbing kids the ability to grow with each other and have the brotherhood that Joey and I share. By now, you've heard all the reasons to keep Emerson open, and I just wanted to share our personal story to help you understand that this is more than just money. This is people's lives. Closing these schools is short-sighted. Salt Lake is growing exponentially, and the kids will be coming back to our public schools if we keep them open. My question to you guys is, how do you plan to compete with private schools and charter schools? Surely closing blue ribbon schools is not the way. You don't win a soccer match by taking out your best players. I've been at a lot of the meetings, and a lot of people said they'd hate to be in your position, but I share the opposite sentiment because I looked up your guys' salary, and you're making historic amounts of money here, so I would gladly be in your position. And so, I mean, that I think is roughly my time. That's all I've really written. I just want people to understand that when you're a kid, like, your friends are everything. When you start jumbling them around, you're just breaking relationships. So that's it. Thank you for your time.
Next to speak is Katie Wagner.
You've also gotten a lot of emails from me, so sorry about that. Emerson had 170 adults and 90 kids join us for our Q&A with Brian Conley. But tonight I'd like to comment on a concern I have about the weight of neighborhood school enrollment. The G5 policy identifies school enrollment as a consideration, but it does not specify neighborhood enrollment be weighted over total school enrollment or open enrollment. Mr. Conley stated low neighborhood enrollment as a reason to study Emerson for closure. Emerson had the 10th lowest neighborhood enrollment of all schools, so it was barely in the bottom half. Emerson has the second highest total enrollment at 84% capacity and maintains a wait list for open enrollment families. Emerson's lower neighborhood enrollment is a direct consequence of its relatively small neighborhood footprint compared to its neighbors. The southern boundaries of Uinta and Hawthorne extend to 2100 South. Emerson's southern boundary ends at 1700 South. Fewer houses means fewer neighborhood students in the Sugar House community that maintains moderate enrollment density. I looked at the applied science study to gauge how many more students Emerson would gain if the boundaries were to extend to 2100 South 2. It turns out Emerson would pick up about 150 students, which would increase its neighborhood enrollment to about 450, the second highest in the district. In this regard, I view neighborhood enrollment as a redistricting term and not a permanent school closure evaluative measure. Emerson maintains the highest open enrollment population in the district. In fact, Emerson attracts students from 26 of 27 neighborhood boundaries during the 2021-22 school year. I still struggle to understand why focus on neighborhood enrollment over open enrollment, About 30% of Salt Lake District students attend school from outside their neighborhood boundary. Emerson has had one of the most stable student enrollment trends over the past decade, and its enrollment stability is projected into future years. I think a huge part of the stability before, during, and after COVID was due to open enrollment appeal and school reputation. In conclusion, total enrollment should be considered alongside neighborhood enrollment and open enrollment, and past and projected enrollment stability trends should also factor into school evaluations. Thank you.
Okay. Next to speak is Molly Robinson.
Thank you. I'm a parent of a student at Hawthorne Elementary in the ELP program and a resident of the Hawthorne neighborhood. I urge you to look beyond enrollment numbers and building age and consider the larger city planning implications of school closures. I'd like to offer neighborhood walkability, safety, and school quality as significant metrics that should be considered by the school board in this process. These metrics demonstrate how the proximity of neighborhood schools like Hawthorne enhances the desirability of our community for families. First, walkability. Proximity to neighborhood schools sustains established urban living patterns, creating a more stable and interactive community. The number of students walking and biking to Hawthorne is observable and measurable. Where are these metrics in your study? Walkability is an important public health metric, corresponding to improved learning outcomes, better learning retention, and improved mood. I know I'm in a better mood after a short walk outside, and so is my kid, and his teacher is grateful. Mentally active modes like walking facilitate the development of a child's mental map of their neighborhood. Walking or biking to school is a form of self-actualization that contributes to psychological well-being. Don't we want this for all of our kids? When we close neighborhood schools, we reduce our community's ability to fulfill this potential, and these schools, particularly the ones in Central City, you'd be gutting the Central City and its walkability potential. Safety improves with increased walking and biking to school, and the school district should be encouraging it. Safety is a non-linear relationship. The more kids walk to school, the more they are seen, and the risk of injury is actually reduced. They are observed by parents, drivers, and neighbors, setting a societal expectation that pedestrians are present. They also advertise that this is a school that is valued by the neighborhood and worthy of their children's attendance. It's also free school district advertising. I urge you not to reinforce major roadways as neighborhood barriers by using that as a metric for closure. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Molly. Up next to speak is Catherine Orlowski. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you. I have heard throughout the school closure boundary study process about the importance of school choice, keeping choices within schools and throughout the district available to families. As a parent of a Wasatch Elementary student, my family's choice is Wasatch. We live just outside Wasatch school boundaries in Salt Lake City, and we, along with numerous other families, have chosen this amazing school community for our child. I moved to Salt Lake City almost 20 years ago to join Ballet West. As an artist and now as an arts educator for the ballet, I have witnessed time and again how the arts positively impact both students and our community. In fact, Salt Lake City is known for its robust art scene and well-supported arts organizations, especially when considering the size of the community. Wasatch reflects this Salt Lake City value in its stellar arts programming supported by a strong school community. Wasatch makes it a priority that all students experience an arts-integrated curriculum that includes dance, music, drama, and visual arts every year. Not just one or two of these arts genres, but every one, every year. We also chose Wasatch for its reputation in academic excellence, its diversity, and its strong community. Not only have I seen my son succeed academically, he is also learning how to become an engaged member of his community, learning the inherent value and importance of diversity through friendships and collaborative learning with peers from a wide variety of backgrounds, cultures, and experiences. This combination of arts, community, and diversity that Wasatch offers is a model for the Salt Lake City School District's mission statement. We made our choice to send our son to Wasatch years before it was named a 2023 National Blue Ribbon School, and it's not its first. This award nationally recognizes what we have known about Wasatch for years. It is a top-notch school, a leader in quality education, and its teachers, administrators, and staff educate the whole child with a care and nurturing that is not paralleled in all schools. Should you choose to keep Wasatch open, and I strongly urge you to do so, I have no doubt that it will continue to lead the district in demonstrating how best to integrate new families and school communities, just as it has for years, welcoming families like mine, while providing an outstanding, diverse, and well-rounded education for all who walk through its doors. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next is Rob Durham.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. My name is Rob Durham, and I'm the father of two Emerson students. I'm also a science teacher at East High School. I am a committed advocate for our city's public schools. My children have had an incredible experience at Emerson, and I look forward to the day when they attend East High School with me. I'm not here to represent my school or the district. Instead, I'm here to advocate for Emerson, and my comments will relate to my career and my experience as an educator. I have been teaching for 21 years with students from 7th through 12th grade. I've also served on accreditation teams with the purpose of evaluating schools' progress and success. I know enough about education to recognize a successful school, and Emerson is the epitome of a successful school. Emerson has achieved this success by doing the following: ensuring student safety, social and emotional well-being, and acceptance to its many different student populations. providing quality instruction that is engaging and meaningful, promoting student achievement and success, and finally, cultivating relationships with parents and families and the broader community through effective communication and outreach. In my experience as a teacher in the Salt Lake City School District, it has proven to be a very student-centered district. In this district, schools and educators ask one question of any decision or policy: is this in the best interest of the students? This ensures that student success and well-being are the motivation for every decision. This question needs to be applied to the current decision of school closure. So let's consider the question. Is closing Emerson in the best interest of the students? Clearly, the answer is no. When a school like Emerson is working this well and has proven to be so successful with students, families, and the community, we should try to nurture and cultivate the school's community, culture, and learning environment so that other students and families can continue to benefit from the future. So there are so many other compelling reasons for not closing Emerson. Don't forget that closing Emerson is not in the best interest of the students. Thank you so much, everyone.
All right, up next is Lisa Einerson. Thank you, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Liesl Einerson, licensed clinical social worker specializing in child welfare, and also a parent of 3 kids. 2 of my kids attend Emerson, and my third hopes to start kindergarten in the fall at Emerson. We bought our house in the Emerson neighborhood because of the Emerson community. We are from out of state, and Emerson is our family, community, and the hub of our neighborhood. I have been asked to read a letter on behalf of a mother of a child with special needs that attends Emerson. To the Salt Lake City School Board and Superintendent from Deborah Cruz. In 2018, at 4 years of age, my son Lucas was diagnosed with moderate to severe autism, which was later confirmed to be severe autism. At the time, he was attending a little preschool in our neighborhood. He did not speak, he couldn't transition from one activity to the next, and he was having a really hard time connecting with his classmates because he couldn't communicate with them, just as he could not communicate with his teacher. This made him very unhappy and was also preventing him from learning. It was heartbreaking to witness his struggle to fit in, which bore no results, no matter how hard he tried. At age 5, he started kindergarten. The district's authorities sent us to Emerson, even though it's not the closest elementary school to us, because they considered that Emerson special education program would be the best suited fit for my son's special needs. And they were absolutely right. Since he started school at Emerson, I have seen him overcome many obstacles with the caring help of his teachers, Principal Reynolds, Miss Wall, the speech specialist, the administrative personnel, and the rest of the school community. In spite of the havoc that the pandemic on 2020 caused and a recent diagnosis of type 1 diabetes in the summer of 2022, which he has been able to successfully navigate thanks to that care that he receives at the school. Today, a few months into his 3rd grade, I can say that my child is thriving. He speaks, he reads, he writes, he does math, and loves science. He tells stories, he makes jokes, he has friends. I wish everyone could see how sweet, how kind, how protective of each other his close-knit special ed class is. Most of them have been classmates since they were kindergarten. He could not do any of these things before Emerson. There, my 9-year-old autistic son has found his voice, acceptance, a community, and a stable and safe space to learn. There he has thrived. Please consider my son and all the other special ed students like him when you make a decision, and keep Emerson open. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Next to speak is Jesse Mandel.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to be here. My name is Jessie Mandel, and I am the mom of 2 kids at Wasatch, a 4th and a kindergartner, sitting patiently over there. I'm also a child advocate, and I work in public policy. I'm currently with the organization Healthy Schools Campaign and formerly with Voices for Utah Children. I'm not speaking on behalf of either organization, but I share this because I have over 15 years of experience advocating for policies and practices that improve the well-being of students and families and advance equity. My family is not in the Wasatch boundary, But we chose Wasatch because it is uniquely positioned to help all students thrive, all students. Wasatch does this in several key ways. As one of the most economically diverse schools in the district, Wasatch supports some of our most under-resourced students, and its role as a critical connector for families and students on the margin is only increasing. But beyond immediate supports, Wasatch also has, as you've heard, a thriving and unparalleled arts program. The arts help all types of learners, and they help students with all abilities. They help us heal from trauma and grow and connect as a community. The arts program at Wasatch is not just a program for a select few. The arts program is integrated into the school completely, as you've heard from others. It allows a diverse student body to come together through painting, dance, theater, music, and more. And finally, Wasatch has a sense of community. This is integral to Wasatch's culture. A sense of belonging and togetherness, no matter who you are, where you come from, or how you show up. For these reasons, from my professional experience and as a parent, I see that Wasatch is uniquely positioned, both in our physical location at the meeting point of so many different neighborhoods, and also through the arts and community that is at the core of Wasatch. Closing Wasatch means losing a unique and exemplary school model that can't be replicated and reverberate throughout the Salt Lake School District. Thank you. I urge you to please keep Wasatch open.
Thank you, Jesse. All right, our last speaker this evening is Heather Thomas. Thank you for joining us, Heather.
Thank you. I'm a mother of 2 children who go to Emerson Elementary. They are in 1st and 2nd grade. When my son began kindergarten, we started at another school in the district. And a few months into the school year, he began displaying behaviors such as running away from class and emotional breakdowns. I met with the behavior specialist, the principal, and the teacher weekly. We moved him to half days, and I worked with kids with autism at the time, so I was like, I know about this. I know I have tools under my belt. And we made a plan, and a few weeks into the plan, I get a call, and they said that they are immediately giving up on him and pulling our permit because we'd moved during the time. And as a parent, that is very disheartening. You feel very helpless. You know, they couldn't help my child. I also found out later that when the bus driver of our daycare was picking up him from his half days, that there were 4 adults that had to drag this kindergartner out to the bus. We are now at Emerson, and they welcomed us with open arms, and they really, truly cared. He is now excelling. He is testing above grade level, and he feels safe, supported. Closing these schools will affect so many children's lives. We might even get sent back to the school that utterly failed my child. You are on the outside looking in. We are the inside, begging you to pause, start over, and try other options. Prioritize these children. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. All right, I'm going to give one last opportunity for Chris Porter. Chris, have you joined us in the meantime? Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this open discussion and public comment period on school boundary and closure. We really appreciate your input and all of the insights that you bring to the table. Moving on to our agenda. Now we're moving on to our reports agenda. A possible 4th comprehensive high school next steps. Business Administrator Kiersey.
Yes, I just want to report to the board that as we've had, public input and people asking for a look at a 4th comprehensive high school, we are currently working on a procurement process to hire a demographics firm to really look at our high school demographics and see, is there a viable student population of the high school age kids, not just now, but into the future, to support 4 comprehensive high schools. So we've got bids in. We'll be proceeding with that shortly. I just wanted to report to the board that that was what was happening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Business Administrator Kearsley. Any questions? Board Member Anderson.
I have a question. When we had the bonding conversation at our retreat, we talked about how a survey firm could be used for other purposes in addition to the bond. And I think some of the things that keep coming up as a curiosity are the impact of a full comprehensive high school to overall school size in its relationship to sports participation. And so trying to learn from the community things they would want in a high school, and if it's in fact needing to be a comprehensive high school, or if that might have a negative impact on sports, which matters to a lot of families. So will a firm be able to ask community questions like that?
Yes, I believe they will. Get feedback, get really what the feel of the community is, what they're really looking for.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Ashley. Any other thoughts or comments, questions regarding these next steps?
I have one more comment. The only other thing was that in the past meeting when we discussed this, we had a follow-up email from faculty at Glendale, which said, whatever you're going to do, just please tell us if it's feasible so that we can move forward and, know what's possible and not possible. So I have that question about whether we're surveying, but what I should have added is it seems like there's also a sense of urgency about surveying so that whatever the answer may be, feasible or not feasible, we can tell people what they can expect.
Thank you, Board Member Anderson. Board Member Bade.
First of all, I'd like to thank the parents and their kids who came here asking for a school, a high school on the west side. We are a minority majority district, and I just want to personally, thank our district and the board for taking this, seriously, and putting in some money out there so we can do some more study and find out exactly what need to happen. So, and I just want to say thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Bade. Excellent. Okay. Can I see that really quick? All right. Thank you so much for that, Alan. Alan, I do have a question for you regarding this topic. I guess, I don't know if it's the survey firm or the district, but what does our level of community engagement with parents look like throughout this process and these next steps?
So the demographics firm that we're hiring they'll be looking at data and doing their projections on the number of students. We've got survey firms also on contract. Well, actually, I don't think they're on contract yet, but we have an RFP that's closed. We're waiting for that. So we will probably have multiple different firms working on this to get community feedback. So as we reach out as these firms reach out to communities to get the feeling of what's needed. So that's the first step. And then if we go beyond step 1, then we can have further discussions of what that looks like.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from the board? All right. I'm going to just divert a little bit from our agenda. We do have a recognition that I wanted to give. Erin Bodell, the new assistant principal at the CTC Center. Are you with us? And excellent. I'm so sorry that... Thank you for joining us, and congratulations.
I'm just going to throw in a shout out. We're excited to have Aaron here with his expertise in CTE and driving a lot of our work with Laura DeShazo. Oh, Laura's there too. Hello. So just excited to have you here and with all the expertise you bring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to our discussion agenda. Business Administrator Kearsley, we're right back at you for the next few. The topic is on bonding.
Right, so as you recall, back in our retreat in September, we had a presentation from our financial advisor, Alex Buxton, kind of on timelines of bonding. As we've discussed the possibility of bonding to rebuild both West High School and Highland High School, that bonding process is really a 12-month process. So we are currently, today is election day everywhere in the nation except for Utah. Right now we are 12 months out from a bond election possibility in November of 2024. So what we want to discuss with the board is the possibility of setting as a goal. The final decision doesn't have to be made until August. That's when we certify that we're going to put it on the ballot. But if November 2024 is a goal that the board wants to set for bonding for those projects, so I open it to the board for discussion.
Excellent. Thank you, Business Administrator Kearsley. And board, just please keep in mind that this does relate specifically to the feasibility studies and the viability study that we did for Westside High School, feasibility for Highland and West. So please keep that in mind in your comments and thoughts tonight. Any questions, comments? Board Member Anderson.
Just to clarify what you're saying, we did have a quick feasibility study by the former Auxiliary Services Director regarding Glendale, so the bond could not. That would be a separate item.
Well, so the bond it can be whatever we want it to be. So that can be part of the discussion as we continue over the next several months through a bond discussion. The feasibility study didn't, we haven't made any decision on exactly what to bond for, so that's still open for discussion.
Board Member Williams, Vice President Williams, excuse me.
It's fine. I was just not a question, but a comment. I think a lot of us here have heard from various constituent groups wondering, in addition to the Glendale High School possibility or another fourth high school, kind of what's happening with the results of the feasibility study with both Highland and West. Personally, I think it's time to explore that a little bit further and see what possibilities may or may not exist. So I would be in support of moving forward and seeing what possibilities may exist with bonding.
Yeah, I just want to clarify, if the board gives us direction to move forward, it's just really getting the ball rolling, getting the pieces in place.
And so, Alan, let me just kind of dissect that for a minute. So what you're suggesting is that while we might give direction for us to move forward, we'll have a number of months between now and this summertime in August to actually decide if that's what we want to do for November 2024.
Yeah, and some of the things like Alex pointed out, if we choose to move forward at this time, we would want to move to a design phase of those two rebuilds, so that as we're looking at bonding, we can actually show the public what we intend to bond for.
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions? All right. Does the board want to make a motion to move this to action to give formal direction, or do we want to kind of give an informal direction and look forward to anticipated conversations in the near future?
Yeah, an informal action, and it appears like I'm personally for moving forward, so.
Board Member Jensen.
So when you say informal action, does that mean that we will have additional updates and discussion opportunities?
Yeah, with starting the process, we will have continual, you'll get tired of hearing about me talk about bonding if that's what we're going to start doing. If we're setting the ball rolling in this for November of 2024. Knowing that it's just set as a goal, and as we gather data and get information, we may choose to change where that goal actually is.
So when we're planning our agendas, then we also need to be providing opportunities for you to give us the information.
Correct.
Okay. And Business Administrator Kearsley, the survey firms that we've been talking about that the RFP is out for, they would play a critical role in what decision we make between now and August. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Clearly, any time you send something to an election, you want the majority to vote the way you want them to vote. So we would use this firm to, engage community, to get community feel for it, see if they're supportive, or see what we need to do to help them understand the need for bonding.
Okay. Board Member Sika, any comments?
Nope.
Are you in support of informal direction?
Yeah, that's fine.
Board Member Sweat, are you in a position to weigh in on this topic? I know oh, there we go. She's a thumbs up. Thank you, Board Member Sweat, for joining us remotely again. I'm seeing a majority of the board giving you that informal direction to go ahead and move forward and to continue to bring us updates as we move along.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, Brian, excuse me.
I guess what I was anxious when I was saying that we would have it on the agenda, it seems to me that this is another situation where it would be beneficial to have public comment opportunities. So,
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
If I may ask, I don't know if this is appropriate here to ask or no. Have we received any bids from those firms in terms of?
No, so what we have is, so when the feasibility study was presented by the two architect firms that did the feasibility will be the architects that we use if we move forward. And they both came up with estimates. You know, they're not really going to know until we actually really design the buildings, because we haven't designed the buildings yet. But their estimates, so in the spring, I believe it was February of last year, were around $300 million for each of the two schools.
Okay. Yeah, ask them if they give veterans discount.
They're going to contract with you personally.
Thank you, Board Member Bade and Business Administrator Kearsley. We'll move on to our next discussion agenda item, which is the Roslin Heights property plan.
Back to me.
Yep.
So if you remember back in on our September 19th board meeting, we had a site plan proposal for the Roslin Heights property. That plan consisted of 6 tennis courts, a multi-use field that can be used for both soccer and lacrosse, also a playground, pavilion, restrooms, changing rooms, lockers, storage, and 105 space parking lot. So, yes, go. Sam, do you just want to go to the next slide? Yeah, so this is the same schematic that was presented at that meeting. Again, this is, you know, not finalized plans or anything. This is just the idea. So next slide, Sam. So part of what we're looking for to do on this site. It's the building that was on that site is past its useful life and needed to be torn down. So as we look at what to do with that site, looking towards a potential rebuild of Highland High School, the tennis courts and the soccer field would be displaced on the plans that were presented last February. So this gives us an opportunity to give those sports a place to continue playing and practicing while we do a potential rebuild of Highland High School. So it also help serve public would have access like they have access to any other of our facilities, but truly its purpose is to serve the school district needs, and the needs are tennis courts and both lacrosse and soccer fields, and really will help with that that rebuild at Highland. So we surveyed the public of not all the public, but the public that live around the site we're talking about. And Sam, if you can turn to the next slide. So we asked them 2 questions. Survey question number 1 is, as our athletic programs have expanded and additional sports have been approved by the Utah High School Activities Association and the Salt Lake City Board of Education, the district has proposed that after demolishing the Roslin Heights Elementary School building this school year, the site be reconfigured with 6 tennis courts, 1 artificial turf for soccer and lacrosse, 1 sports field building that includes bathrooms, changing rooms for student athletes and drinking fountains, pavilion and playground, and parking. We will develop guidelines to make the fields and courts available for community use when not in use by our schools. So the responses to that survey question are on the next slide. So of the respondents, 222 said yes, they would support this plan. 30 said maybe, but I'd like more information, and 7 voted no. So you can see an overwhelming majority of the respondents would support this plan. Survey question number 2, next slide, Sam. There's a need for lighting on the field and tennis courts to accommodate daylight savings time impacts on multiple sports and team uses of the same facilities. The district would ensure directional lighting and strict hours following city and county code to reduce impact on surrounding neighborhoods. The responses on that one, next slide. So 218 respondents said yes, they would support the lighting plan. 35 would say maybe, but they'd like more information, and 7 voted no. So next slide. I'd just like to highlight some of the things that came across. So the survey respondents were able to add some comments. There were a lot of requests for pickleball courts. And
Yes, thank you.
but as I noted, this is, I mean, it really serves the district needs. There is not such thing as a high school pickleball team. There is yet.
Thank you.
There
I
is
think we
such,
might have a board team assembled right now.
Yes.
we do have tennis teams, and for competition tennis, you can't restripe them both. I mean, competition tennis has to have just the tennis lines on it, not multiple lines. So at least for now, they would just be tennis courts. That doesn't mean once Highland got rebuilt and those tennis courts are rebuilt over there, then we can relook at those tennis courts and see what we might want to do with them. The questions, there were concerns related to artificial turf, you know, the safety concerns of artificial turf, and, you know, also how that works with dogs, if dogs are going to be out there. Traffic concerns, increased traffic on 20,000 East.
20th East.
He's an accountant.
It's clearly a 2,000, not a 20th, but 2,000 East, yes, or 20th East. Next slide, Sam. Additional comments. People were wondering what is the plan for security as it sits right there in the neighborhood. Clearly they want to know that it's, you know, what are we going to do if people are using it for things they shouldn't be using it for. Request to add a swimming pool. There's a request to add, you know, instead of the 1 field, 2 fields, and then questions about public access and use. So those were just some of the items I wanted to highlight that were in the survey. And as we, if the board votes to move forward with this plan, we will continue to include these comments in our final plots and plans. But we're asking for board approval to move forward with this and get contractors in place to execute this plan.
Thank you, Business Administrator Kearsley. I'll go ahead and take the first question if that's okay.
One more slide, sorry.
Okay.
This is the budget that would, the estimated budget that was presented in September. You can see we're looking at about $6.4 million. As this is a new plan, this was not in the current approved budget, so we'd want the board to approve this, and we would then add it to the, it actually will probably split fiscal years, so we'll have some of those expenditures in this current fiscal year, but it's a project that probably won't be completed until next fiscal year, so the expenditures will split between 2 fiscal years.
Thank you, Business Administrator Kearsley. That was the nature of my question, and why it is critical that we have board action this evening on this topic. So I just wanted to throw it out there to the board before I open up any questions. Board Member Jensen.
Yes, in the estimated budget, I didn't see anything in there for security, which goes back to the concern that had been raised, and it seems to me like there is going to need to be something budgeted for that with all of those facilities.
Right,
and
and
vandalism and
I mean, we have similar issues with all of our open spaces that are open to the public. So as we continue to design it, we'll look, you know, is there a gate at the parking lot? So, you know, after hours it gets closed off so cars can't get in there. Clearly we can't necessarily stop people from getting in there. We do have a district-wide vandalism budget already. Luckily lately we haven't had, I mean, knock on wood, we haven't had a lot of vandalism issues. But we do budget for that district-wide to repair those things. So it'll be a district commitment to keep it a safe environment, not let it run down, because clearly we want our properties to be top-notch, especially for our student use.
So you're telling me that you would use funds from the district security fund source as opposed to allocating money just for this particular facility.
Right. Yeah. You know, as we look at a security plan, you know, does that mean a security guard that sits there overnight? We'll look at it, but probably not. We don't have security guards that sit overnight at any of our other properties. But does it maybe mean some secure, you know, facilities to basically close the area at night? But as far as vandalism, we already have a district budget for that.
Right.
And so we would need to allocate additional money for this particular site.
I guess what I'm getting at is this is a little bit more unique, this site. I mean, a lot of the sites that we have are contiguous to a high school or an elementary school or a middle school. This is in the middle of a neighborhood. And I think that there's some security that just goes along with the attachment to a high school, and security that's, I hope you understand, security that's going on with those other facilities, the buildings and all of that.
Yeah, so as right now, it's just a plan. We haven't, I mean, we'll continue to flesh out security needs of the site as we move forward. And anything that's significant of cost, we would bring back to the board.
Okay.
Thank you, Board Member Jensen. Board Member Anderson.
Mohammed raised his hand first.
Ladies first.
So, in a year when we were not doing a boundary study, I don't know if there would be as many community questions about the plan, but the questions I'm getting relate to this idea that if the district was to sell the property of Roslin Heights, that would preclude or reduce the ongoing need for potential school closures or future boundary studies. So it's my understanding, and then you can just correct me if I'm wrong, that districts typically retain property because any kind of sale is one-time money that can't be used on things like teachers, principals, and things that we operationally need to run a school. And it would just roll back into capital at an amount that is perhaps not as highly valued given the role we have to go through in selling property where the city has the first right of refusal. So I think there's some community tension around, you know, one batch of constituents I have is worried we are going to sell properties, and the other batch believes that perhaps if we did sell properties such as this, we'd get ourselves out of some of this problem. So it's my understanding that these are somewhat unrelated, and I'm hoping you can clarify that.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. So the boundary study and school closure discussion is more about what's best for students and their learning environment versus a financial discussion. Yes, there are financial implications, but we didn't start this process because we don't have enough money to run the schools that we currently have open. So unrelated there. And you're right. I mean, if you choose to sell property, it's a one-time infusion of cash, and once you use that cash, it's gone, and you lose all the flexibility you may need for the site that's in question. So you're absolutely correct.
Follow-up question. Some of the same group who's concerned is wondering, related to the bonding discussion we just had, obviously West High also needs to be rebuilt. Will it have similar needs like this, and what would the response be? Because I think there's some assumptions that we're doing this to benefit Highland rather than also doing something to benefit West, when in fact the proximity of this property just kind of avails itself to this opportunity. So if West was to need something similar in the future, if they were to be rebuilt, what would be the strategy for making sure they had field use?
Yeah, first, I mean, I just note we would be discussing what to do with this property regardless of whether we are bonding, rebuilding, closing schools, because the property is vacant. We don't want it to become an eyesore. We want it we want to be good community partners. In the event that we rebuild West High School, we'll work with the architects to determine which facilities will be disturbed with the plan that we pick for rebuilding, and clearly we'll make sure that our students have places to continue to live out their high school experience regardless of a rebuild or not. What that is, we haven't developed that plan yet.
Thank you.
Any comments or questions? Sorry, I forgot about it.
Thank you. Okay, so for security purposes, I'm wondering, you know, if there is a possibility of entertaining a surveillance cameras in that property once it is situated, and so that will be much more feasible. That's one. And also, why can't we have informal tennis courts in there? That's what I call pickleball,
Pickleball.
Yeah, informal tennis. So
Because the striping, I mean, if people want to play pickleball on a tennis court, that's fine, but the lines are different. The widths are different, lengths are different. So if you striped it for both, that causes problems when you're doing competition tennis, which is what kind of tennis would be happening there versus just maybe recreation where the exact line isn't as important. So for competition tennis, you can only have it painted for tennis.
So is it possible then to entertain an idea, instead of having 6 tennis court, we could have, 2 of those to be designated for pickleball?
Well, I'll say again, the district doesn't have a need for pickleball. The community may want pickleball, but the district doesn't have a need for pickleball.
Okay.
6 courts is kind of what we need.
Okay.
I believe Highland right now has less than the amount of courts they would like because of where they're placed on the current site. Giving them 6 courts allows the team to practice, not have to share courts. They have enough space to practice. I believe our other 2 high schools, East and West, both have 6 courts.
Okay. Poor pickleball.
Escalante Elementary has a pickleball club on Tuesdays from 2:30 to 3:30, if anyone's very committed to playing pickleball.
Okay.
There you go.
Thank you for that insight. Thank you, Mohammed, for your question. Board Member Sika, do you have anything you wanted to weigh in on?
I'm just money. Money. You're going to give us more of that, right?
I mean, it is, it's a big chunk of money, but we have to do something. We can't just let the property sit vacant.
And if we were to sell the property?
We haven't done a market analysis, so we don't know, but again, if we sell it, whatever we get for it, we'll spend it on capital needs, and then it will be gone.
I'm interested in more of, because I know that you guys have done, is it the feasible study?
Feasibility. Yeah.
Feasibility study. It's just, we're building so much in the district. And so, and asking for bonds and all of that, so it's just concerning to me. That's all.
Thank you, Board Member Sika. Board Member Sweat, is there anything that you are able to weigh in on? Vice President Williams.
Here she is.
Thanks, Nate.
Oh, there we go.
There I am. First, I'd just like to thank Alan for a great presentation and for the thought that's gone behind this. I have appreciated that the district doesn't want to leave that property vacant. That's something that has already happened, and the building needs to be obviously taken down. But I think that more so for me is that to have that property be something that Highland High can utilize and that they need desperately is such a win-win for our district. And yes, I understand that, it's $6 million, but we also have enough capital. We have enough money in our capital budget to do that. I don't think that Business Administrator Kersley would, venture down that if he didn't feel like we wouldn't be able to afford it. I appreciate that the survey went out to the community, and you can see that they are in favor of it. But more so, this is also an ask from Highland High. The tennis courts are in disrepair. They don't have lights. I think that in order for us to provide the things that we need to for the kids that are playing some of these sports, and also that we've taken on lacrosse, that we just don't have the green space. And I think that Roslin is in a great proximity to Highland, where kids can walk down and it can be utilized. And I think that more so that, as I have been listening to Alan talk about it, that's the priority. is that it's a priority for the school, for our students, and then it's a plus, for the community to have something, that's actually surrounded. That piece of property is surrounded by homes. So for me, I'm in support of this. I think that it's something that I know would be a positive, for the community, but also for Highland. That it's just been talked about so many times, and in such a positive way that it would be. I would just hate to see us not continue on the path that we are. That our business administrator has made this recommendation for us to do.
Thank you, Board Member Sweat. Vice President Williams, anything you wanted to contribute?
Not at this time.
Okay. Student Board Member Evans?
I just want to clarify that, sorry, if we move forward, it would be with that exact plan with the 1 field, 6 tennis courts, and then the bathroom and locker room?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Business Administrator Kersley, I'm wondering, just kind of to follow up with what Board Member Sweat had mentioned about, we added lacrosse to high school sports in our school district. It's also my understanding that other high school teams could utilize this space as well if there isn't an option to have practices or games near at their schools. Is that correct?
Right. It'll largely be utilized by Highland, but it will not be a Highland property. It will be a district property which can be used by other schools as well.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you for answering that. All right. Board Member Jensen. Sorry.
Well, thank you for clarifying that, but I guess I wanted to just go one step further, because in the presentation you said, okay, it's for school use, and Highland, that makes sense, but then it opens up to the other schools if they had those needs, and that would come before the public. I'm happy to provide opportunities for the public, but what I'm tasked with is ensuring that the needs of the students of the Salt Lake City School District are being met. So priority-wise, those students would come before the public.
Yes, so like all of our other priorities, if the public wanted to, use the field or tennis courts, there's a reservation they can reserve like any of our other fields that we have, or if they're just open, but school or district use will always take priority.
Thank you. Seeing that questions and conversation and discussion has kind of come to an end on this portion, I would look for a motion to move this to the action agenda.
I move that we place the Roslin Heights property plan on the action agenda.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion?
Do you want to clarify which second you're going to accept?
Oh,
I heard two. Just for the record.
I think I heard Mohammed first.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry, Brad.
Sorry. Yours is next.
All right. Seeing no further discussion, we'll start with a roll call vote with myself. Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes, with the provision, and that's why I was asking about the security costs and those things. In the past, have had instances where we've approved things, and then later on we have found that the cost has significantly increased. So I'm relying on, and I understand that there can be a little, but I want it to be that we're at the 6.5 million, and that 6 months from now I'm not faced with, oh, by the way, Board Member Jensen, it's really going to be 13 million. Okay.
Yeah, and just to note, we technically won't know exactly what it is until we go out for bid and get the bids back, but if it's significantly different, we can bring it back to the board at that point.
Thank you, I'd appreciate it.
Board Member Sweat?
She had a
thumbs up. Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it. Thank you, Christy.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Excellent. That motion carries. Thank you, Board. And we will revisit this again on our agenda. Alan, we're sticking with you, man. Item number 3 on our discussion agenda is the Sustainability Phase 2 funding.
All right, you tired of me yet?
Never.
Okay. So again, on October 3rd, we had a presentation from our Auxiliary Services Department about our Sustainability Phase 2. They kind of went through what the plan would be for Phase 2, and in the memo that's attached to the agenda, I kind of go through that and list that out. I'm not going to go through that again. So Phase 2 would cover construction costs in 2025 and 2026. But to move forward, we need to get a financing tool in place. For Phase 1, if you remember, the board approved the district entering into a tax-exempt lease purchase, which is a type of a loan that the school district can enter. And then we're currently paying that back with the savings from the solar and the other energy savings that we did. McKinstry, who helped put the presentation together, also says Phase 2 would have enough energy savings that we could do the same thing, do another TELP loan, and then pay the TELP payment over the next several years with savings from the solar and other things that would be installed in Phase 2. So again, open for discussion, but looking for board approval to move forward with a TELP loan so we can start financing Phase 2.
Excellent. Thank you, Business Administrator Kearsley. Board Member Anderson.
I have some questions about this. Much like all the topics on here will intersect, I think the conversation would be super different if, again, we were not undergoing a boundary study. And then as a reminder to the public that not only were we undergoing a boundary study, but it's the first time in 2 decades we're undergoing a boundary study. So as where the districts around us may do this every year or every other year, we're doing it 20 years of work now, which is a much bigger undertaking. So it raises all these questions that may not arise in a typical year. When you're looking at the list, we know that McKinstry recommended, and they indicated this when they gave us our presentation, they recommended certain schools based on various features of those schools. Not knowing what clear metrics would be for potential future boundary studies, knowing that this was much more expansive, I think it's worth mining some questions about, like, our student board member asked if a school building with solar panels was to close. McKinstry indicated it's not the best practice to remove solar panels from that building and put them on a new building. So my hesitance about approving the TELP loan is not having a long-term elementary school facilities plan to make sure that not only do these schools align with what McKinstry has said, but they align with kind of any future expectations for boundaries, if that makes sense. So my question is, not wanting to stifle sustainability for the students who made this plan, or in general for the district, would the TELP loan be linked to exactly these schools and fiscal years, or is there flexibility in saying, yes, we recognize we need a TELP loan to pursue ongoing financing of sustainability, but there may be flexibility with how schools are considered for projects? Does that make sense?
Right. So the things that are on there are so far the recommendations. Now, if we approve to go forward with the TELP loan, then McKinstry will really dig in and design Phase 2. Right now, they've just kind of done a high-level look at it, but they want to spend the time and effort and the cost to really design Phase 2 unless we're committed to move forward with Phase 2. And a part, we have that conundrum of what's going to happen in the future, but do we hold everything and not do anything because of what may or may not happen in the future? So, if you put solar panels on a school that closes 5-10 years into the solar panel life, yes, you can move them, but yes, it costs money to move them.
And just to follow up in response, I think the question is not so much what would we do in relationship to the future, but I think the question from a parent's perspective is it influencing the future? Because when we hear the presentation, McKinstry says, we've in a vacuum decided XYZ school. But if you're a neighbor and you watch solar panels going up on a school, it's hard to think like, well, that will be studied. Do you know what I'm saying? There's the perception and then there's the neutrality of the organization. So if we move this forward, will McKinstry be able to adapt or be flexible to the ongoing boundary needs of the district?
Yes, it just depends on when everything lines up, because they're going to move forward with the plan, because remember the sustainability resolution has some dates in it, and they've laid out a plan in order to meet the target dates. This is what we have to do. So if we make a different decision 4 years from now, well, phase 2 is done. So, and they're going to make a phase 2 recommendation based on the information they have today. So it's a conundrum, but it's one we're kind of stuck with. We choose to move forward, or we choose to, revisit our sustainability efforts and say what's best for that.
Thank you, Board Member Anderson. Any other questions or thoughts? And Sam Quantz, do you mind checking to see if Christy is logging back in? Thank you. Looks like we might have lost her. All right, seeing no other questions or comments, I would look for a motion to move this to the action agenda.
I move that we move the Sustainability Phase 2 funding to the action agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion? All right, seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote with Board Member Beg.
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes. And being that Christy is having some technical difficulties, we won't count her right now. All right, that motion carries, and we will revisit this on the action agenda. All right. Business Administrator Kearsley, you get a touch of a break, and I'm going to invite Brian Conley up to have a discussion agenda item of boundary and planning update. Superintendent, is there anything you would like to start the conversation off with, or the presentation off with?
No, but to end the presentation, yes.
Okay.
Good evening, board members. Thank you for having me here tonight. Our work on boundary and planning continues, and it's been coming along for quite some time now, as the graphic on our first slide indicates. So this graphic is one that you're very familiar with, and it shows the first approximately 1 year of work and what has been met during that time. And this second half of that graphic is shown here, and in accordance with administrative procedures, we are lining up with November of 2023 on this. And as you read over that piece, I'd just like to say that the purpose tonight is to provide for all of you community input on our information sessions that we've had. I'm also going to provide additional information for you regarding our online comments and the 7 Q&A sessions that occurred at our schools that are under further study. These 5 categories you see in front of you are from a previous board meeting. The information and data that we've been digging into with both our data group and our transition group into these categories is helping us prepare our recommendation. And of course, when you look at number 5 up there, community input and stakeholder feedback is front and center and where our focus is right now. Over the course of the last 2 months, we've had these community information meetings. And at each of these meetings, we presented about a 20 or 30 minute PowerPoint before we opened up the meeting to questions from the attendees. We made adjustments as we learned what works and what doesn't. For example, the difference between our first meeting down to our last meeting listed on here just a week or so ago. We had district leadership who attended the meetings after that first one and really answered questions that drew upon their expertise, specific questions that they could dig into deeper. We also had our participants write their questions so we could gather that information. Some of that is what I'll be sharing on these slides coming up. And out of those meetings, we saw these major themes emerge. On the next few slides, I'm going to share with you these themes in more detail, as well as address how we're responding to each of them. And as you look through these major themes here, you've read your comments over the last 8 months, 7 of those 8 months, and I believe you received the October comments just recently, so you'll have that those October comments. But you probably see that some of the themes from those comments are very similar to what you're seeing here. The first theme here was ensure decision makers are listening to feedback. Listening to feedback has been a high priority for district leaders and board members. All of you have had access to the recorded meetings. We've had board members and district leadership attending the information meetings, but also the access to those meetings when attendance wasn't possible. You've all received copies of the comments, and you've also received some updates similar to this from the district, and district leadership has reviewed comments as well. Another one of the themes is consider alternatives to closing all 4 schools in the center of the city. District leadership is considering this feedback as it works on a recommendation, and it was one of those things we heard, and it is being considered in that recommendation forthcoming. We also heard stakeholders say that we needed to ensure equitable access to programs. We heard that over and over. The plan is to be able to include this feedback into our initial recommendations as well, and really we've had a chance to dig into this information as we get ready and prepare the recommendations. Explain property use if schools are closed. What you see in front of you here is what our administrative procedure indicates will happen in Board Policy G5, those administrative procedures. We don't want school properties to be an eyesore or a safety hazard. You just heard just this evening about the Roslin Heights property and how that's being repurposed for the benefit of students. That is part of this right now in action. So that was also a theme that we heard in those information meetings.
Ryan, could you please read through those aspects of the administrative procedures?
Sure.
Thank you.
Per administrative procedures, once a decision has been made to permanently close a school building, the board will examine various options for ensuring that the land and/or the building remain an asset for the community and do not become a blighting incident or safety hazard. In accordance with all applicable state and federal laws and regulations, the board will consider options for selling, leasing, repurposing, or demolishing the school building. Typically, the board will prefer an option that allows that building or space to be used in a manner that directly benefits the district and/or its students. And to the extent practicable, the board will solicit input from community members on options that will benefit or appeal to the community. Another theme we heard was to make sure all schools are safe and maintained. We will continue to maintain our buildings. All our schools are safe and maintained. Regardless of building age, our schools are maintained in a manner that meets the needs of that particular site. Yearly walkthroughs occur, multi-year maintenance plans are in place and adjusted as necessary, and they're conducted and updated at each site. And these plans are presented in public board meetings each year as well. We have heard attendees at our information meetings voice concern over the impacts of class size and staffing. Very important to keep in mind that resources follow students. If schools are consolidated and the projected enrollment increases, the school will gain teachers. The impact on individual class sizes will vary. Some individual class sizes may increase and some may decrease, but our goal remains to create more balanced and stable class numbers that remain on average similar to what we have now. Also, and very importantly, impacted employees will have an offer for district placement going into next year as well, and you'll hear more on that in a bit. We heard that one of the things about really wanting to hear it describe the financial aspects of this process. You heard a little bit, if you've come to any of those meetings, you also heard some more tonight. I'd like to just repeat that our district is on solid financial ground. All schools have a certain amount of fixed costs due to administrative staff and utilities, for example. This fixed cost is not dependent on the number of students in the building. The closer to student capacity a school is, the more efficient the costs are spread out on a per student basis. At the same time, we do not want to overfill schools. More of our money should be spent directly on serving students. It's about much more than money, though. It's about within school choices for all students, teachers and their need to collaborate over grade level curriculum and student needs with teachers who are teaching what they too are teaching, and each school needs a community where it isn't the same handful of adults doing most of the work. Larger community spreads that out. We also heard as a theme the need to prioritize walkability for neighborhood students. We think that when recommendations are shared, we hope that community members will see that their input, like this one, is reflected in the recommendations regarding this and the other themes presented. We had those information meetings. We also had 7 site-specific meetings. We had more than 450 stakeholders attend these meetings at the schools that are under further study. Some community members weren't able to come to the information meetings that I've already shared the major themes from. But at these meetings at the specific schools, we took notes and shared those with you, the board, and also district leadership. We heard their thoughts, and in addition to what was shared on previous slides, these are the additional ones that maybe you didn't hear on those slides, but came up in our site-specific meetings. One of the reasons we made a commitment to all impacted staff for next year was in part because of, for example, what you see under that first bullet. So those additional thoughts included what you see here. We also had additional thoughts regarding transitions. There were concerns about topics like open enrollment and access to after-school care, as well as early childhood. We heard about transition concerns regarding SEL needs of students, and we heard about the need and want for parent and staff participation in transition planning. We also heard there was a desire for clarity in communicating impacts to students and staff. So those were some of the major things we heard from those 7 site-specific meetings. And last but certainly not least, we've been collecting comments via the district webpage. We've been reading those, we've been discussing those. Here you see on this graphic over the last 8 months the number of comments that have been left for each of those months. Remember, these comments don't include the notes from the meetings that we just got done talking about, those information meetings and site-specific meetings. The vast majority of these comments that have been entered have been provided by parents, but we did hear from all stakeholder groups. We heard from students, we heard from employees, we heard from taxpayers who some who have children in our district, some who don't. We heard from from all the stakeholders that were listed on there through those. We refined how we were collecting those comments, and I wanted to share with you a more detailed look at just this past month, the information you just received. Obviously, you haven't had a chance to read all those comments, but for our online comments in October, we had about 200 comments submitted. About half of those October comments focused on these 4 areas: questions regarding use of enrollment data, special program placement, comments about their school, staff programs, and the school's role as a community center and what they love about that, and also that desire for walkability to their neighborhood school. Our next steps include public comment 2 weeks from, just under 2 weeks from now. The public portion of that meeting will begin at 6 p.m. at Glendale Middle School, and you can sign up by calling the district starting Monday during Monday business hours, but you can sign up starting Monday. That number, that 801-578-8351 number, and the information will be going out on that as reminders too. When the public hearing hits on Tuesday, December 5th at West High School, you do not need to sign up for the public hearing. It would just be the public comment that you would need to sign up for the November 20th meeting. And with that, before we finish up, I'd like to turn this next slide over to Superintendent Grant.
Thanks, Brian. Thank you for providing a summary of all of those meetings we've held with the community over the last weeks. I appreciate the comments of people here today, the public, for coming, for representing your school so well. I want you to know that we hear what you are saying, and it is affecting our decision making. So just wanted to thank you for that and being here. Also, we are beginning to prepare for the board a recommendation that we would share with you on which schools the district, after this study period, would recommend for closure. This presentation we would like to hold at the November 20th board meeting to share both with you and with the public what the district recommendation is. And I know in talking with you, I have appreciated your recognition of the importance of this and your agreement to do that, so that we can share with the public ahead of the public hearing what the actual recommendation is from the district. We have heard from the public an interest in being able to speak directly to what that recommendation is, and so that they have the information in front of them, the specific information, so that we wanted to be able to give the public the chance to see this recommendation, which will include the schools that the district is recommending for closure, the proposed boundaries that would be associated with closure, and that would affect a number of schools in the district as we seek to make sure that schools have sufficient population going forward. It would also include recommendation for the placement of special programs, which includes our Gifted and Talented Magnet ELP program, our dual language immersion program, and our special education hub. And the fourth piece of that presentation would be some information on the transition that we are starting on. We have prepared a transition planning document that would help us in the event that schools are closed, that would look at all of the things that we could do to smooth that transition of students and families and staff to new schools. We have shared that with our school leaders, and we have shared that with the school community council chairs to get some feedback on that going forward, so that we get better at what we're doing, so that that transition plan is good before we would head into this. But again, just want to reiterate, we would be presenting our initial recommendation to you as a board at that November 20th meeting. With that in mind, there will be a great deal of public interest in that meeting, and rather than holding it in this small room that doesn't hold so many people, we recommend holding it at Glendale Middle School. The school is available for the board meeting on the 20th, and we're holding it on Monday evening, the November 20th, because the election is Tuesday evening, and we didn't want to conflict. They weren't kind enough to reach out to us to see if it had conflicted with our board meeting, but we're moving that. So just to let everybody know again, the reason we're holding this on a Monday evening is because of the election and not wanting to conflict with that. So just wanted to get the board's direction or agreement, I guess, in a sense, to present this recommendation, this initial recommendation to you as a board on the 20th, and then to hold the meeting at Glendale Middle School to meet the needs of the community there who may be interested in attending. So,
when you say initial recommendation, that's what my question is, that I know I will receive, is if a recommendation is made by the district on November 20th, obviously based on statutory requirements, we cannot vote until after the new year. So what would be the process in which, after the public hearing, changes could be made? You know, how fixed is the presentation on the 20th, and what can the public expect would happen between the public hearing and January?
We anticipate that you'll get a lot of feedback as board members on this recommendation, and that you would want to share with us your questions and concerns about the recommendations and whatever changes. You may, as a board, of course, direct us to do some things differently in those recommendations. And so that would be expected. That's one reason we're calling it an initial recommendation, with the understanding that it could be changed over time, given the feedback. It takes into account a great deal of feedback. Certainly, we cannot meet all of the demands of the community in the recommendations. So, while all those concerns are heard, we're unable in looking at closing schools, of course, to meet all of the expectations that parents may hold, that community members may hold, but still that has an influence on what we're doing, and this then becomes for the board to direct us as a district to look at things again. I imagine particularly boundaries will come up, because that will be very new to people, to see what the boundary changes may be. We'll also be posting that information on the web, so that as we're presenting in the board meeting, that it would also be available on the web and people could take a look there.
Thank you, Board Member Anderson. And I just do want to note that we've heard from Board Member Sweat, who's having technical difficulties in her travels, and she apologizes for not being able to be here for this portion of our discussion. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Any other comments or questions from the board? Board Member Begg.
So the board meeting is going to be from 5:30, is that right?
We actually need to hold a closed session.
Okay.
From 5 to 6.
Okay.
So we will be beginning we would post that the meeting on November 20th will begin at 6 p.m. for the public portion of that meeting. We'll convene as a board for closed session to discuss personnel matters, and then that meeting, the public portion, would begin at 6 p.m.
Okay. Yeah, if we can just make sure that we have a correct address listed in the link, so that would be great.
Yes, let's do.
We do not want to send people here.
No, they don't need to come here if Glendale is where we're.
And not Glendale Public Library, it's Glendale Middle School.
Yes.
Sometimes those are confused as well.
Good point. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Any other comments, questions from the board? Oh, Board Member Jensen, thank you.
So at the November 20th meeting, there will still be a public comment section, but that will follow the format that we used today.
That's right.
And then when we move to the December 5th meeting, that's when the format will just be open without signing up. And okay, just wanted to clarify that after this presentation, there's not going to be another public comments. Do you see what I'm saying?
Public hearing 2 weeks later.
Right, there will
Right.
be the public hearing 2 weeks later, but after you've made your presentation, we're not going to open it to public comment at that point.
Not at that point. That's a time
Yes.
for you to ask questions
Right.
of us about the recommendation that we'll have prepared for them.
I just wanted to clarify that.
I think
that
it's
that will
useful to
be-
clarify this, that public comment period and this, as you know, board members, that public comment period has a real structure to it that we follow each board meeting. A public hearing, while we can put limits on the amount of time people speak, and we will, probably you will do so as a board in order to keep it within a reasonable time frame, there are not limits on the number of people who can speak. So the public hearing will extend until it's finished.
Thank you, Board Member Jensen. I know the superintendent asked all of us to, kind of give an affirmation that we're comfortable. One, moving to Glendale Middle School, not library. I think my manager colleague Brooke would really appreciate that. And also relative to the recommendation being announced publicly on the 20th as well. Is this board comfortable with that course of action that the superintendent's laid out?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Superintendent Brian, is there anything else that you want to leave us with?
No, thank you very much, board members.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, moving on to our action agenda. We have 3 items. I'll go ahead and state those really quickly for the folks viewing on YouTube. The first item is item number 6, the Safe Schools 24-023. The second item is the Roslin Heights property. And the third is our Sustainability Phase 2 funding. We will go ahead and start with item number 1, which is an item that was pulled off of the consent agenda, Safe School Case number 24-023. I will remind the board that because this is a Safe Schools case and that there is personal identifiable information of an individual within our school district, that we cannot necessarily discuss the items that we did discuss in closed session earlier today. So I will entertain a motion from the board relative to that first action agenda item.
The first one is about safe schools. I move.
Go ahead.
It's yours.
No, you're always ahead. Go ahead. No.
It's your. I told you I'm gonna give it to you next
No.
time. That's yours, brother. Go for it.
I move that we vote on Safe School Case 24-023.
Brian, I wonder if we get a little more specific, if we're voting to approve or to...
Voting to approve or disapprove of the plan provided by the school for Safe School Case number 24-023.
We have a motion on the...
Will that work?
She said,
Please restate the motion.
I move that we vote to approve the plan provided by the school for Safe School Case, School District for Safe School Case number 24-023.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Being that what I stated earlier about the personal identifiable information of an individual, we can't go too deep into conversation or discussion on this one. So I would look for a roll call vote, starting with Board Member Jensen.
I have to vote no.
It doesn't look like we've got Christy yet. Bryce?
Bryce Williams, no.
Jenny?
I abstain.
Ashley Anderson, no.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, no.
All right, that motion does not carry. Parliamentarian, I'm going to assume that this comes, okay. All right. Thank you so much, Board. We'll move on to our second action agenda item, which is the Roslin Heights property plan. And I will entertain a motion so we can have further discussion as needed.
I move that we approve the Roslin Heights property plan as presented.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second on the table.
Is it acceptable, parliamentarian, to add that with the caveat that there be ongoing presentations should the budget, significantly exceed what is being recommended? That's what I think Brian was asking for. Is that something we can include? Yes. Can that be friendly? Yes. Then that is what it is. Should I say it again?
Please.
I would move that we accept the Roslin Heights property plan as presented, with the knowledge that were there to be substantially higher costs, they would be presented to the board before moving forward.
Do you still second the motion?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Any further discussion to the motion and this particular item? All right. Seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote with Vice President Williams.
Bryce Williams, yes.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
All right. That motion carries. Moving on to our third action agenda item, Sustainability Phase 2 funding. Yes, Sustainability Phase 2 funding. I will seek a motion from the board.
I move that to. I move that we approve Sustainability Phase 2 funding.
Alan, do we need to get a little more specific on the nature of the TELP element?
Let's have a motion to approve the district moving forward with the TELP, tax-exempt lease purchase financing tool for feasibility, for
sustainability.
Sustainability Phase 2.
That one. He lost me there in numbers. Does it sound good? Yeah. Okay, great.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion?
Again, the only thing that would be relevant to me, I want to move forward with that because of what the students did and to keep with the timeline. But I would like to say I think McKinstry needs to be direct and do this in alignment with other events that may or may not happen in the district in the future.
To the best
That
of their
was vague,
ability.
but you understand. Like, I want to support that, but make it clear that
Don't just blindly
we
go
can't-
forward, but no, there's these other things going on at the same time.
exactly.
Any other discussion points from the board? All right, seeing none, we'll start with a roll call vote with Board Member Sika.
Jenny Sika, yes.
Ashley Anderson, yes.
Nate Salazar, yes.
Mohammed, yes.
Brian Jensen, yes.
Bryce Williams, yes.
All right, that motion passes. Thank you, board, for working through a tough, agenda and a meeting. Again, we appreciate all the participation of the parents who joined us this evening, and of course, all of our district personnel who've been involved in all the things that it takes to bring a board meeting together, and of course to all of you for your participation and service. Moving on, we will go to a business administrator report if needed.
It's needed.
All right.
I just wanted to report on a couple trainings that I participated in during the month of October. On October 18th, there was a fall finance training presented by the State Board of Education. In there, they covered just kind of some finance updates, finance rules, regulations. They're making updates to their Utah grant system is the system that the state board uses to manage all the federal grant awards. They're adding some enhancements to that program. Talked about school fees, which they always talk about, just making sure we're following the rules there. The importance of internal controls and monitoring. They talked about special ed, and there's districts that actually carry forward special ed funds. We don't have this issue, so let's just say I didn't listen to that that section. But there's regulations on if you're carrying forward special ed funds on what to do with that. Doesn't apply to us. So those are the kind of the main points they covered. In addition, on October 26th, I attended an all-day conference for UASBO. UASBO stands for Utah Association of School Business Officials. It's where all the business administrators of the state get together. They get together about 4 times a year and have day-long trainings. One of the interesting topics we covered there was lease revenue bonds. So we've talked about TELP here. One way of financing lease revenue bonds is another financing tool that can be used by government entities outside of bonding. The Salt Lake School District has used that twice in the past. We do have a municipal building authority, and you create that separate entity to incur this other kind of debt. So those are, as we look at projects going forward, that's a tool that's out there for the district to use for funding these type of projects. In addition, so myself, the business administrator from Weber, and Park City had an open discussion on our experiences with the legislative audits. Those are the other 2 districts that have had the big, thorough legislative audit, and just answered questions from the rest of the people, the rest of the districts, because they're all going to have their turn. Then some lawyer person talked about stuff, how lawyers are awesome. Really about preparing and presenting cases before administrative law judges. We have our in-house counsel that handles a lot of that, so she does great on that. And then just a school finance update from the State Board of Education, kind of laying out what their priorities for the next legislative session are, and we as a group discussed those priorities. So that's my report.
Thank you, Alan. We really appreciate your participation in those trainings. Superintendent Grant, Superintendent's report.
I have a number of pieces of good news to share, if I may.
Right.
If you'll indulge me with my list of great news.
We shall.
First, I was so pleased to send a message letting our staff know last week that all current faculty and staff thank you. All current faculty and staff of impacted schools, that may be impacted by closure, will be offered equivalent employment opportunities within the district. I think this is a really important thing to have done. We looked carefully at the number of our staff who may be affected by a decision on closure, at the importance of people in our process of transition going forward, and the kind of district we want to be in establishing a supportive community, and believe that this was an important move to make to reduce uncertainty and to keep people on staff. There can play important transition roles for us. We imagine most teachers will travel with students anyway. With a lot of turnover and transition in our district, we imagine too that we would return to normal staffing levels within a year or 2, maybe even sooner, with the kind of turnover we have. And we want to make sure that in the transition we are over supporting our schools that will be receiving new students that way. So very pleased to have been able to make that an announcement, and appreciate our partners there in the back row. Also, on some other great news, after leading the district out in our first apprenticeship program in the state of Utah. Salt Lake City District is proud to be part of the second apprenticeship program. We're going to an announcement of that this week. Our students are going to be participating in an apprenticeship with Utah Paper Box, which will allow them to work in manufacturing, packaging, and printing. This is a partnership with Talent Ready Utah and the Salt Lake Community College and our Salt Lake Education Foundation, who've put this together. This is pretty important stuff to do this quality of apprenticeship work, where they're going to be able to shadow and work with all of the departments in their first year when they're seniors in high school. They ultimately get to pick an area that they want to study and learn more about, and that will be their next 2 years of learning and participation with Paper Box. And then they can choose from print, machinery, mechanics and operations, woodworking, maintenance, graphic arts, and some other things that are part of the manufacturing business. This is pretty impressive that Salt Lake is the participant in the only 2 apprenticeship programs of its kind in the state. In addition to offering that kind of opportunity, several of our students will be, several of our schools are hosting performers from Japan over the next couple of weeks, visiting artists who share cultural practices, and this is in partnership with the University of Utah School of Music, and they get to learn about traditional Japanese art and anime and foods and things like that in the coming weeks. In terms of growth, there's a couple of good measures I want to point out. We had an increase in participation in all demographics in our advanced courses in AP, in IB, and in concurrent enrollment, which is great news. It's more an average of 3% more students are enrolled in those courses this year than last year. In this last school year, 2023, 263 students in our district earned a seal of biliteracy. This means that they're able to speak, read, write, and listen in 2 languages at the level of teenagers, of course, but that's good. So that's at what's called the intermediate mid-level. That way, it's a growth up from 177 to 263 this year. So impressive kudos to those teachers who are working with the students to get them to that level. Couple more pieces. Middle school and high school math are implementing new programs. Middle school math in grades 7 through 8 and college prep math in the high school programs. And want to thank our teachers. They participated in a professional development on October 16th, a non-contract day, and worked together about supporting this math program and the power of student study teams and identifying multiple entry points for students to engage with mathematics and get into their learning. So excited to see that happening. And along with that, there's also a new collaboration in between Highland and East High are working together to implement a new course on data science and statistics, where they're going to learn analytical modeling, statistical models, and how to do that. So that's terrific to see that the data science course will be offered next year in 2024. Also, we have the District Science and Engineering Fair coming up and an invention convention that will showcase scientific and engineering creativity. And then finally, because this matters when we're going through hard times, we do know that all our high school health students now know CPR and know how to use defibrillators. I just kind of loved that word.
It's okay, Grant.
Defibrillators as well. So that's pretty. You included? See, we have someone here. And we had a student a few years ago who actually saved somebody's life knowing CPR. So pretty exciting to see that happen with all of our students in those classes. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Grant. We really appreciate it. We'll go ahead and start with Board Member Jensen for board member reports.
Well, I do have a report because I have been at a board meeting for the Utah School Board Association, and in that meeting the board directed the Utah School Board Association leadership to work on updating the website so that it was more user-friendly for we as board members, but then also school districts. You also have an earlier delegate assembly that will be in June instead of August, which gives us more time to prepare for the next legislative session. Then we also asked them to schedule an earlier JLC meeting in January 12th, before the legislative session begins, where we are all invited to attend so that you can be participate in how to prepare for the legislative session. We also voted to have district leadership call additional meetings between now and January if there were significant developments in legislation that they could see was developing so that we could address that. Then there was a discussion on how the Utah School Board Association can be more effective in advocating for education. And part of that discussion, there was the idea of a full-time lobbyist, but the expense for that would be $150,000. A lobbyist on retainer, that would be approximately $30,000. So board leadership is going to look at a way to try and create a way that they can advocate even more strongly for us, the legislature. We also discussed the conference agenda. The USBA conference will be January, I've got it right here, January 4th through the 6th. Please put that on your calendar. And I guess I'll give you just the other dates that you ought to be aware of. I already told you about the JLC January 12th. Then they are proposing that there will be 2 Day on the Hills this year, February 8th and February 22nd. So they want to encourage the different school boards to participate in one of those days on the Hill. And what they're going to try and do there is have individuals there that can help direct you where you will be most effective in going and that sort of. December 1st is the cutoff for your master board training, and if you have it done before then, you will be entered into a drawing for an incredible prize. I don't know what the prize is. Okay. I think that covers it.
Excellent. Thank you, Board Member Jensen, for the report and for your participation with USBA. Appreciate it.
I want to start by saying that I'm thinking of the Meadowlark community, as I know they're dealing with the loss of a student to cancer this week. And it's heartwarming to see how many faculty and staff are stepping up to support his memorial, and it's absolutely heartbreaking. It's hard to shift from that news back to business, but the Human Sexuality Committee meeting was late last month, and we reviewed middle and high school resources from Planned Parenthood, which focused on healthy relationships, abstinence, and birth control methods. There were great comments from Board Member Bade, but also our representative faculty and administrators from Clayton, Mountain View, and Glendale, as well as parents. The next finance subcommittee won't take place until later this month, but based on a constituent request, I've asked that in that subcommittee we communicate about school activity reports and follow up in a public meeting following the subcommittee. The particular constituent is concerned about perceived inequities with schools having a range of total amounts. So anyone listening or streaming or watching this back, If you look on the agenda for tonight, you'll see that on the consent agenda, we approved school activity reports, and we do so on a regular basis. And these reports are not money that's allocated by the school district, but they reflect a school's spending across a variety of discretionary categories. So for example, you might find your library's book fair proceeds there. If a PTA or PTO raises funds for a contracted specialist that the school pays, those accounts would be reflected there. If a principal writes a grant for a specific project, that might be one place that you see that account. So in past meetings, we've addressed an issue where accounts have been set up and not spent down over time. So for example, a school may have had a student council and they no longer have a student council, but there's $75 that's lingering in that account. As Alan's shared in past meetings, he's directed administrators on how to roll over those funds, and we've noticed that that recommendation is not necessarily generating change. So in our next subcommittee meeting, we can talk about how to ensure that money is spent on students and consider some type of clarifying memo on the top of that report that speaks to how it's a school-based fund rather than a district allocation. To speak about the specific inequity concern, the differences in account balances is most often driven by which schools have PTAs and PTOs who run more or less successful fundraisers. And in past years, both individual PTOs and the district staff have approached PTAs about sister school type relationships, and that has, in my personal experience, not been very supported by non-Title I PTAs, so that's a conversation that we can't address in the subcommittee, but that parent groups can consider continuing to talk about ways to equalize that funding. In the pleasantry department, there have been a lot of field trips in Precinct 3. They're very fun to see and share on social media. Kids have gone to Wasatch Community Gardens, water conservation parks, and the public library. And middle schoolers from our precinct and in my precinct, but going to Bryant, they're going as far as Rio Mesa Center in Grand County regularly, and also the Great Salt Lake. And our electric school buses also took a field trip to my neighborhood, and they visited the Capitol building, which was exciting. If you're looking to support your schools, Washington and Wasatch both have book fairs this week, and West High has a listening station that I understand could use a few more listenable vinyl records.
Thank you, Board Member Anderson. Student Board Member Evans?
This past week, I went to Flying J, and they just remodeled their 100th remodel, and also donated $20,000 to the clinic going up in West High. So that was a great event to go to, and thank you to Flying J.
Thank you. Vice President Williams.
I have a couple of items. The first one, I also wanted to acknowledge the passing of the student at Meadowlark. Just a really, really sad announcement to come forward this week. Was also going to mention a couple of community events, including the Flying J and Pilot presentation of the check for $20,000 to the West Side Clinic. That was a nice event to go to and to see Josiah there. Also had the opportunity to attend an event with the NAACP. Dr. Grant was also there and gave some really great remarks around the work that we will be doing with the Dignity Index moving forward. A number of SCC meetings last week. I have 4 more this week, and this week has just started, kind of in the middle, so that's going to be great. And then also just wanted to generally thank members of the community for being here for the public comment period, but did want to give a special recognition to members of the community for Mary W. Jackson and Newman for being here, and having our Newman SCC chair stay until the very end of the meeting to hear everything that is happening.
Thanks, Rachel.
So thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Williams. Board Member Bed?
All right. Well, it has been quite a bit of a stressful time given the current atrocities that are taking place in Gaza and Israel. Yeah, I don't know where to even start. The statistics as of October 31st, every 10 minutes a child is killed. I mean, you saw how our heart are so tender right now just when you hear about a child dying because of an illness. And now that's, I don't know how to even explain it. And the reason I am sharing this is because In our school district, we do have families who are from Palestine. We do have families who've lost their families. And not only that, in my last meeting that I had with Utah Muslim Civic League, here in Utah, unfortunately, we have noticed lashes against Muslims, wherever they are. There is actually a teacher or a professor at Slick Community College, and she was called an animal. She was called to go back home. She was called, she is there to kill every child. She was called names that are just like far beyond explanation. And now we do know so many of our kids at school, probably they are feeling right now uncomfortable. I don't know how I can express to them that I am here for them. I don't care if you are Jewish or if you are Muslim. You want to come, you want to sit down with me, you want me vent, you want to just like, cry, I will be here for you. And I would like to extend a task here to our district to have, every available resources to any of our students or their families who have lost their whole family. The numbers are just like far beyond explanation. Just give you, this is just like about children here. This is as of October 31st. 133 babies below age of 1. 482 toddlers, 1 to 3-year-old. 344 preschoolers, 4 to 5 years old. 1,042 primary school children. 664 high school children. 966 young adults 18 to 25, 2,506 adults 26 to 55, 521 have survived who are between 56 and 74, and 89 Nakba survivors who are 75 years old who were killed during this atrocity. And I do have a QR code that I will share with you, and would love to have a message go out to our community in the event of any hate crimes, to report it to that QR code, because that QR code is there to help and make sure that everyone is feeling safe. We got a lot of work to do to make sure this new generation are gonna be generations of peace, and that's my hope. And that's just like what's going on right now is just so inhumane, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Bade, for sharing that with us and your vulnerability and how this is impacting you and your family and our community. Appreciate it. Board Member Sika?
I don't want to make light of what Muhammad just said, but I went to my SEC meeting at Parkview, and they have turkey and tamale days coming up where you guys could go and purchase these turkey and tamale days. That goes towards their PTA and the school and all those fun needs that our community, that community needs. And I just, when I sat in on this meeting, on this SEC meeting, I was flooded with memories of my thoughts of how the East Side schools have all these awesome programs, and the programs that we have on the West Side are pertinent not only for the West Side, but these community members of that community get together and try their best to raise these types of funds that may, benefit their children and their community. And I just thought, we don't have the means or the funds like the East Side does, but the care is all around. And my impression that I felt in this SCC meeting, that everybody is in it for the well-being of their children, and that's a beautiful thing. And so I just wanted to relay that. They are selling those tickets. It's $4 a person, or $15 for a 4-member family. So you guys are more than welcome to come and join the Parkview Turkey and Tamale Days. This is actually, I believe, their 2nd annual year, and it's been a hit, so come through.
Jenny, all you had to say was tamales, so.
Tamales, that's what I said.
Superintendent Grant, you wanted to?
I did. If I could just take a minute. After your remarks, we are living in troubling times in many ways, and the events internationally and what has happened to Israelis, what has happened to Gazans, can be overwhelming at times. I would ask us as educators to focus on what's happening here and to be clear every single day that this district does not tolerate and will not allow anti-Muslim or anti-Semitic behavior, that we are aiming to be a dignity district, and that is one where every person is of value and we treat them with dignity no matter what, no matter what is happening internationally, no matter what is happening in other cities in the country. I worry tremendously about the impacts that may come to us locally because of international events. These things get triggered quickly and can get ugly fast, and they can't be in our schools. And so would ask educators to be aware and conscious and attending to these sorts of things that may happen, the anti-Semitic and anti-Muslim behaviors that may arise, just to be watchful and attentive and responsive. We must be responsive to these things as a district and in all of our classrooms. So just wanted to put that out there because it's so important to not let even the smallest of things happen in our district that make our students unsafe or to feel any sort of contempt in our district. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent Grant. Looks like we may have lost Board Member Sweat again. I'm super sorry. Okay. I think just the internet where she's at is pretty tough. But I'll go ahead and just follow up with my board member report. One, just a huge thanks to the community of parents that we have in our school district for attending all of our informational meetings. Again, another shout out and thanks to the district staff who've been working on potential school closure and boundary changes on behalf of the board as we gear up towards the 20th and the 5th and the beginning of the year. As Superintendent mentioned in her comments tonight, that those public comments from parents are very, very important, and they're critical in our decision-making process. And we encourage you to continue to come to the table and share, what your thoughts, concerns are, or celebrations might be in regards to that process. Also had the opportunity between our last board meeting and this one to attend with a number of my colleagues from the board an event with Tim Shriver on the Dignity Index and how we're going to implement that in our schools and how we're going to keep it 5 and up. Those of you that have read the Dignity Index cards know what I mean. So we're looking forward to rolling that out in our school district, and thank you, Superintendent Grant, for bringing that opportunity to us. The last thing that I wanted to mention is that we have all been invited as a board to attend a fall mixer with city leadership, including Mayor Mendenhall, city council members, State Superintendent Sid Dixon, education leaders from both private, charter, and public schools here in the city in an effort to try to make sure that we are communicating between all of those different sectors in order to serve our community the best that we can. That will be held tomorrow, just as a reminder, November 8th from 3 to 5 p.m. at the Spy Hop rooftop venue. So I hope that we can all attend that in some way, shape, or form. And that ends my report. If there is nothing else, I'm happy to call this meeting adjourned. We'll adjourn the meeting. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.